perhaps the most recognizable franchise in all of popular culture. A film series that resonated with so many people on such a massive scale, Episode 7 isn't even out yet, and it's already made more than most movies do in their entire lifetime gross. What's even more curious, however, is of the 6 major films that are out in this series, it's generally considered that only 3 of them are even any good. But you know what? The prequel trilogy isn't all that bad. And before you jump on me, don't worry, I recognise they're messy, the structure's off, they're badly acted, there's some plot devices that just don't work, but they're not unsalvageable. Scattered amongst the beginning of the saga, there's moments, special and rare glimmers of hope. It just needs some changes. And with the new episode coming out, myself and some friends have been talking about Star Wars a fair bit, and also the prequels. And that got me thinking, how could we fix them? Well, let's figure it out. Now, before I go on, I just want to say that this isn't the be-all, end-all, perfect pitch to clean up the Star Wars prequels and make them perfect. Just like how every bloke knows exactly how they'd lead England to World Cup glory, every Star Wars geek, or anyone who could even call themselves a casual fan, knows exactly how they'd do the prequels. And if you search long and hard enough, you'll probably find a million better ones on the internet. This was just something me and a couple of friends spit out, and I thought it would make a good episode. This is just one direction they could have taken. It's abridged, it's going to focus on core story beats only, and it's a film-based plot, no expanded universe. So in this version of the prequel trilogy, there has been no Clone Wars series, no novels, no books. The only other thing that exists Star Wars is episodes 4, 5, and 6. Now, before we get on to the actual plot, let's get rid of some of the really bad decisions. And for the sake of brevity, I'm only going to pick 2 things. Firstly, let's get shot of the midichlorians. It's such an illogical inclusion that they ever existed in the first place. Why explain something scientifically as spiritually inclined as the Force? To make an allegory, that's like if the first Harry Potter films, like all 7 of them, went exactly the same. But then in the 8th film, during his climactic battle with Voldemort, he started losing due to his wand starting to fail before he whacked some Duracell batteries in and it came back right as rain. Midichlorians are wand batteries. They kill off all of the magic and mystery we originally fell in love with in the Star Wars universe by trying to explain it away with pseudoscience. It's minging. Secondly, no Yoda lightsaber wielding. An oddly specific choice, I know, but the character we are presented with in the original trilogy is a spiritual being. He should be sort of above wielding a lightsaber. Yeah, he can have led the Jedi Council at one point, but he wouldn't have risen the ranks through his ability to flip while holding a green sword. It would be more he got there through wisdom and understanding of the Force alone. Yeah, I get it. It's pretty cool, it's nice, flippy CGI and whatnot. Looks awesome, but it just doesn't fit the character we know him to be. The man who, in episode 5, told Luke, "Do not take your weapons, you will not need them." Seeing him stab dudes, even if they are clones, it's like seeing the Dalai Lama on the front line of battle. It's just unfitting. Right, so now that's all cleared up, let's have a go at the plot. I want to take this idea, this simple idea. Remember that line I just said Yoda said? Yoda's a great teacher, and he tells Luke, "Your weapons, you will not need them." This directly contradicts Obi-Wan's line in Attack of the Clones, where when Anakin loses his lightsaber, Obi-Wan tells him, "Never lose this, this is your life." We're going to make that single line the basis for our entire plot. This is a prequel trilogy where Obi-Wan is the villain. We start off with episode 1. The opening crawl explains to us that the Jedi exists merely as a presence within the universe. Almost like they're patrolling, but not quite that. Just they exist within events that happen. So we start with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn wandering around the galaxy when they are captured by slavers who take them to Tatooine. Obi-Wan goes to draw his lightsaber to defend himself from one of them, and Qui-Gon simply suggests, there's other ways, Obi-Wan. Calm yourself down. The slavers take them in, attempt to take all of their gear. Qui-Gon says, you do not need our gear. Jedi mind trick. The guy's like, we don't need your gear. And they go into the slave trade. There, they meet young Anakin Skywalker, still a slave. It's important he's a slave, because in this narrative, he's always a slave. He's a slave when he's born on Tatooine, and then he's a slave to Obi-Wan, which we'll get to, only to become a slave to the Emperor in the original trilogy. So Qui-Gon meets this kid Anakin in this slave trade, and he's like, shit, this kid's amazing. And he tells Obi-Wan, he's like, wow, can you feel that presence coming off that kid? Because remember, no midichlorians in this thing. So he just senses a strong force within Anakin. Obi-Wan doesn't see what the big deal is. He's not as in tune with the force. He's like, I don't know what's so good about him. And Qui-Gon's like, are you kidding? Do you not feel that? And he's like, right, we need to free these slaves. No, wait. We need to free this slave. Definitely this slave. Now Obi-Wan's a little bit jealous about this. It's not like very obvious, but it's subtle. It's there. You see, Obi-Wan really idolizes Qui-Gon Jinn in this narrative. He looks up to him like a father. They're best friends. They've wandered the galaxy together, and he just loves the dude. And suddenly Qui-Gon's like, yeah, this kid's amazing. And Obi-Wan's never heard Qui-Gon say that about him, and he's like, well, I'm a bit hurt by that, but whatever. I'm going to go with what Qui-Gon says, because he's the dog's bollocks. He's my boy. So they free Anakin, but not before being attacked by the person ruling over all of this slave trade, a Sith Lord named Darth Maul, from which they barely escape with their lives. They get off the planet, and on the way back towards the Jedi Council, Qui-Gon makes it known that he wishes to take Anakin as his Padawan. Obi-Wan's actually pretty heartbroken about this. Again, Obi-Wan looks to Qui-Gon as this great, just brilliant dude, and all he wants to do is impress him. And yet he has this kid they've known for 3 seconds, and Qui-Gon wants to take him on. You know, Obi-Wan, the way he sees it, Qui-Gon was assigned Obi-Wan, but he chose Anakin. Qui-Gon notices that Obi-Wan's upset, and he's not a dick, so he goes and talks to him. You know, it's his mate. And he says, look, Obi-Wan, I can see you're heartbroken, but, like, don't worry about it, man. It doesn't mean anything between me and you. Like, we're still going to be, like, real good buds. You know, I'm still going to train you. And Obi-Wan's like, I'm not sure they'll let you take on 2 Padawans. And he's like, yeah, we'll see what happens. Look, you're still my apprentice. That's not going to change. I still love you like a son. We're going to get you trained. It's just, I've got to take on this Anakin guy. You know what I mean? And Obi-Wan doesn't get it, and Qui-Gon's like, look, there's a force within this kid. There's a force, and it's just so strong and so powerful. I can just sense it. And the force is bigger than you. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than everyone. Because it kind of is everyone. And to ignore someone this in tune with this big spiritual entity that connects us all would just be against my beliefs, against destiny. It's just wrong. This is what Yoda taught me. And you know Yoda, even though he was never my master, I learned more from him than I did from anyone else. And Obi-Wan's like, okay, fair enough. You see him, he's still not completely comfortable with this whole notion, but he believes what Obi-Wan's saying. He's on board. So they go back to the Jedi Council, and Qui-Gon brings Anakin in, and he's just like, hey, got this kid, gonna train him. And Mace Windu's like, fuck is that? And this is where you get the sense that the Jedi Council are a little bit morally grey. Yeah, they are a force that innately exists for good. People that just inhabit the galaxy, you know, righting wrongs, just seeing everything goes out in the natural way and in a pleasant manner. But there's like this militaristic chain to them, like a hierarchy that must be followed, and they don't like it when anybody strays from it. Mace Windu is fuming that Qui-Gon's just brought in some slave boy that he found and went, yeah, I'm training him. He's having none of it. Qui-Gon says to Mace, well, Yoda would have let us. And Mace Windu's like, well, Yoda's not here, is he? Yoda isn't the leader of this council. I am. You do not just bring in a kid from nowhere and tell him he can be a Jedi. What the hell are you thinking? I'm not having this. He's going to go back to Tatooine. I don't care if he stays a slave. This doesn't happen. And Qui-Gon's like, whoa, dude, bit harsh. And Mace Windu's like, it's the order. It's the way things go. And Qui-Gon says, I'll tell you what, Mace. How about we put him through these tests? Tests that were for a level aimed at the age of what Obi-Wan's at now, and see if he passes them. And if he does, you let me train him. If not, we'll get rid of him, no questions asked. And Mace Windu's like, well, those are pretty friggin' advanced tests, like there's no way this kid's gonna do that. So he's like, okay, Qui-Gon, whatever, let him take the test. Now Anakin's a child prodigy, and Qui-Gon knew he was gonna be, but Mace Windu was shocked by it. He hammers through these tests, making Obi-Wan even more jealous because he still hasn't passed them. He's blitzing through it, he's doing amazing. Everything, he's in tune with the Force, even his lightsaber skills are up, having never wielded one. They're on point. And Qui-Gon's like, kid's my Padawan, like, and Mace Windu's like, fine, have your Padawan. Whatever, I don't care, train him, train Obi-Wan, but don't ever go above my head again. And he says to Qui-Gon, he's like, outside of the kid, what have you got to report back from your travels? And Qui-Gon says, we were taken in by slave traders, that's where we found the kid. And he's like, slaves? That's pretty primitive, where the hell have you been? He's like, I couldn't rescue them all, we got attacked by a Sith Lord. I believe the prison guards called him Darth Maul. Mace Windu's like, a Sith Lord? Ye pulling my leg, like Sith hadn't existed in ages, and Qui-Gon's like, I'm absolutely certain his lightsaber skills were unmatched. He was a fierce opponent, we barely made it out alive. So Mace Windu's like, whoo, alright, that needs dealt with. You, Obi-Wan, I want you looking for this lad. I'll get the rest of the council on it. So the plot kind of continues, you get the little tiny glimpses of like the political manipulation by Palpatine going on in the background, but it's not really brought to the forefront, and the plot just generally advances until we get to the point where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon come to their confrontation with Darth Maul, which goes almost exactly the same as it does in the movie you already know. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan get separated, Qui-Gon gets stabbed fatally, Obi-Wan goes furious. Difference is, Obi-Wan goes really furious. He's devastated, heartbroken, foaming at the mouth with rage, and Darth Maul thinks it's hilarious. Obi-Wan's charging him with everything he's got, but he's so driven by emotion and not really thinking about what he's doing. Darth Maul's just like, this is pathetic, and just kicking him about, toying with him, playing with him, having fun with him, really just relishing the guy's misery. And it gets to a point where he wounds Obi-Wan, flooring him. And he looks at Obi-Wan there, and he looks at him just on the floor, tears in his eyes. Darth Maul raises his lightsaber, but then he lowers it. Because he thinks, you know what? I could kill you, but it's funnier to let you watch your master's last breath. And he laughs at the pathetic sight of Obi-Wan crawling over to Qui-Gon Jinn and just leaves with a great sinister smirk on his face. Darth Maul survives. Obi-Wan crawls over to Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon, with his last breath, says, Obi-Wan, I need you to do something for me. I need you to train Anakin, train him to be good, train him to be what he should be. And Obi-Wan says, I promise, Master. But it's a promise he will intentionally break. We go into episode 2 with the core story now being a jealous Obi-Wan training a young Anakin Skywalker. Darth Maul is still alive and will be a villain for all 3 movies. And he's a much more believable and legitimate threat when he doesn't effectively get his ass handed to him by a Padawan in training, a la episode 1 that's already out there. Now remember, Obi-Wan might now have the title of Jedi Master, but he isn't one. Not really. Although we're led to believe he's become physically stronger in the gap between episode 1 and 2, he never really finished his training. He doesn't understand the wisdom and sort of inner tranquility it takes to truly earn the title he now holds. Obi-Wan is now motivated by something a Jedi should never feel: hate. Hate for the Sith Lord that took his master and mentor away. Hate for the fact that he was too weak to be able to do anything about it. And even a little bit of hate for the young apprentice he was kind of jealous of that he now has to train. He's not evil, far from it. He's actually rather nice with Anakin. There's just little things here and there. He's training him wrong. You remember that line from before in Attack of the Clones where Obi-Wan tells Anakin that his lightsaber is his life, that he must never lose it? Isn't it now interesting in this version of the tale that that is the exact opposite message to what Yoda says in Episode 5? So in our version of events, we don't make this a passing line that just seems like a bit of nagging. We make this more like genuinely drilling the idea in Anakin's head. It's repeated, it's given with a real serious, stern face. It's delivered in a way that's like, you must remember this. And even Anakin's like, I don't know, that kind of doesn't sound right. But he goes with what Obi-Wan says because he looks up to Obi-Wan like a father. What's slowly revealed from here on out is Obi-Wan isn't training Anakin to be a Jedi. He's training him to be a foot soldier. One that could do the thing that he couldn't. Kill Darth Maul. Obi-Wan doesn't even realize he's motivated by revenge, but he totally is. All of Anakin's lessons focus on things like the importance of weaponry, the physical nature of combat, using the Force for manipulation and feats of strength. Gone are the philosophical sit-downs of Qui-Gon's teachings. This is military practice. Very friendly and light-hearted military practice. Obi-Wan isn't evil after all. He's just misguided because he never finished his training. But it is military practice nonetheless. We also see Obi-Wan encourage some of the rather arguably destructive behaviors of Anakin. For example, when Anakin falls for Padme, Obi-Wan constantly stresses how much he's on Anakin's side, even though Anakin is technically breaking the Jedi Order. He reiterates that the Jedi Order don't really know what they're talking about and they're a bunch of elitist fools, something he truly believes deep down in his bones, as he doesn't actually think they should ever have taken on Anakin. So while all the formation of the clones and Palpatine's double agent stuff is happening on in the background, the core focus of this story is on Obi-Wan's corrupting influence on Anakin. He genuinely believes he is doing the right thing, training a Padawan so mighty that he can avenge the death of his mentor. What he never stops to question is, would Qui-Gon have even wanted to be avenged? The answer, of course, is no, he wouldn't. And he would never have wanted a Padawan motivated by anger. And even some of the other members of the Jedi Council and Padme kind of pull Obi-Wan up on this, where they're like, you know, you're training Anakin to be really physical, aren't you? And he just kind of shoots them down, and we see his frustration. The one guy who is on board with Obi-Wan's accidental child soldier training is Anakin, because he looks up to Obi-Wan, idolizes him. He really wants to impress him, and he totally believes everything he's saying. He can feel himself getting stronger. He knows that Obi-Wan must be a great teacher. He's got this idea now in his head that a true Jedi should be able to avenge their fallen friends. And there's this cemented notion that Darth Maul is definitively the enemy and must be stopped. And he now wants it as much as Obi-Wan does. So the two manage to track Maul down, and now it's Anakin's turn to have a go as he runs ahead in an effort to impress his master. He has a surprisingly even fight with Darth Maul and almost gets a win in, but unfortunately at the last moment Darth Maul gets the upper advantage and slices off Anakin's hand before quickly escaping. It's at this point Obi-Wan's true motives are revealed. As he comes into the room to find Anakin lying on the floor, his look isn't of sadness for his fallen comrade, but of disappointment that Darth Maul got away. He is upset that Anakin's hurt, but he's more upset that revenge wasn't had. Going into episode 3, Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship starts to fall apart. Obi-Wan is angry after being scolded by the Council for taking Anakin into a life-threatening situation that he could not be prepared for, and he's also not happy that he now has to hide this new news that Anakin got Padme pregnant. Anakin's training now gets much harsher. Obi-Wan's not gone completely drill sergeant, but he's not that far off. Anakin's working longer hours and twice as fast a rate. He finds himself constantly out of breath and tired by the end of the day, but whenever he mentions this, Obi-Wan just taps him on his now mechanical arm and reminds him of his failure and says, "You wouldn't want this to happen again now, would you?" He tells Anakin the only reason he's going so hard on him is for his own safety, that he wouldn't want him to get hurt again. But really what's happening is he just wants to make sure that next time Anakin won't fail. Now Palpatine, who's been lingering in the background doing his whole Sidious double act, hears about this young Jedi that almost bested his Sith apprentice, and he's like, who the hell could have done that? So on investigating, he finds out about Anakin, finds out about his past as a slave, and finds out about his harsh mentor. And he thinks, this is interesting. He enlists Anakin to protect him at a public event in order to manipulate himself into a scenario where he can speak to him one-on-one and maybe, become his friend. So when Anakin confides in this nice old gentleman who he's working for today, Palpatine starts to say a lot of things very similar to Obi-Wan. What? The council won't let you be with Padme? That's harsh, man. That's archaic. The council don't know anything, you know what I mean? You're kidding us, mate. They said they don't want you going after Maul again. Who's going to avenge Qui-Gon? That's surely the one goal they want to have. They want it. Do they not want to avenge Qui-Gon? What kind of idiots are these people? That's real important. Honestly, you're an exception, ye kid. But them Jedi lot, proper bunch of twats. Anakin's excited to hear someone say this. The Jedi Council have never really wanted him here, and it shows. The only reason he's still around is out of some obligation to fulfill Qui-Gon's last wish. Anakin has been very lonely. He's part of this group led by old elitists who make it very obvious they don't want him there. His only friends thus far have been Obi-Wan and Padme. So when this Palpatine guy comes into his life and he's saying some of the same things Obi-Wan's saying and he's really on Anakin's side, Anakin goes back to Obi-Wan with the news. He's so excited to find a new friend. Obi-Wan, mate, I found this Palpatine lad and he's proper class and that, and he's saying the same things you are. He thinks the council are proper shan for not letting us be with Padme, and he says we should go after that Maul twat and it'll be class, and he's mint, mate. I'd love you to meet him. Now Obi-Wan hears Palpatine and he's like, oh shit, I don't trust that guy. So he says to Anakin, Anakin, mate, don't know if you should trust that Palpatine fella, like. And Anakin's just too excited. He's just like, but he's he proper wants to help us and that, and he's saying all the stuff you said. And Obi-Wan's like, no, Anakin, he's filling your head with nonsense. And Anakin's like, but Obi-Wan, he agrees with us? Obi-Wan says, don't see him again, Anakin. And Anakin's like, but he's my friend. Then Obi-Wan pulls rank. Anakin, this is your master speaking. I forbid you to see him again. Key word there, master. It's like a trigger that sets Anakin off. Because what was Anakin when he was younger? He was a slave. He knows what it feels like to have a master, and it ain't a good feeling at all. Obi-Wan's never really used this pulling of rank before Anakin, and it really takes Anakin back. This is where his emotions get the better of him, and he makes his feelings known. Obi-Wan, mate, don't do this to me. Do you know how lonely it is here? I've got no friends, just you. I just want someone else to talk to. The other Jedis don't want me to be here. The council doesn't want me here. I thought you were the only guy I could rely on. Why are you being so controlling? You're my friend. And again, Obi-Wan, Anakin, before I am your friend, I am your master. Anakin leaves. He's done with this shit. And where does he go? Straight to Palpatine. So we now have Anakin and Obi-Wan separate. Anakin being very pally-pally with Palpatine, and Obi-Wan being more, I'm going to investigate and see what the crack is with this Palpatine. He's heard rumours of Maul being led by someone with a political agenda within the Jedi Council's influence, and he's not sure it could be Palpatine, but he's like, this is a little unsettling what I'm hearing here. I think I should investigate into the guy further all the same. When Anakin arrives at Palpatine's, the good Chancellor can see that something's really distressing the poor young Jedi, so he asks what's wrong, and Anakin confides in Palpatine all about the fight he just had with Obi-Wan. Palpatine consoles him, telling him Obi-Wan is falling into being just another lapdog for a corrupt Jedi Council, one that holds Anakin back out of fear and jealousy, one that holds himself back because they want all this pure political control. He compares them to a dictatorship, a cult, one that seems to be getting to Anakin's good friend Obi-Wan, and he makes some valid points. He mentions some history about how they exiled one of their last leaders when there was a disagreement in what the Jedi Council represented. He ends this speech with a look at Anakin and an almost whisper of, "You're stronger than them. You're stronger than you think." Anakin replies, "I don't know about that. I couldn't kill Darth Maul." Palpatine grimaces. "Yes, you can. I know you can. The Jedi have been holding something back from you." Palpatine smiles. "Let me teach you about the dark side of the Force." With new knowledge taught to him by Palpatine, Anakin becomes a force to be reckoned with. He was already at a level of prestige that was near unmatched, but now he's just something else. Anakin's still hung up on Obi-Wan though. Yeah, they had a fight, but he still sees him as a friend, and he's sad to have disappointed him. So he wants to do something that'll get them talking again. He wants to do something that'll make Obi-Wan happy. So with this new power, he decides to go on a solo mission to kill Darth Maul and make Obi-Wan proud. He easily manages to track Maul down because Palpatine helps, of course, and he kind of knows where he is since it's his apprentice, and Palpatine just sort of lets the whole thing play out on the logic of, well, if Darth Maul wins, my apprentice is stronger than I thought, and one less Jedi in the world. If Anakin wins, I'm sure I can make a new apprentice out of this scenario. So Anakin goes over to wherever Darth Maul is, tracks him down, and when he gets there, what happens is just brutal. This is no longer an evenly matched fight, it's a slaughter. Maul looks terrified as he attempts barely to block each of the strikes, and Anakin just brutally beats him down, massacring him, taking his head. It's just straight up murder. Nothing like what a Jedi would do. And of course, Anakin thinks he's done a wonderful thing, so he returns to Obi-Wan, and he's proud as punch, and he's like, "Obi-Wan, I did it! I did what you wanted!" And Obi-Wan's confused, and he's like, "Anakin, what are you talking about?" Thunk. Anakin throws down a bag. Obi-Wan opens it. Inside, the head of Darth Maul. He recoils in horror and puts his hand to his mouth in shock. He looks down at Maul and back up at Anakin. A cold, proud smile crawling up Anakin's face. He thought he wanted this. He was dead wrong. Anakin, what have you done? I did what you told us. Qui-Gon is avenged. Darth Maul's dead. How did you do this? I'm stronger now. Palpatine showed me how to realize my full potential. I told you he would help us. He showed me where Darth Maul was. Anakin, this is wrong. Anakin's smile fades away to disappointment. What? But this is what you wanted. I didn't want this. Not like this. Anakin's disappointment begins to morph into a scowl. Obi-Wan looks at the decapitated head of his mentor's killer. He looks back at Anakin. I hope I never trained you for that. There's a little twitch in Anakin's hand by the hilt of his lightsaber, a moment of hesitation and pause, a thought of violence. But he overcomes it and he leaves, leaving Obi-Wan alone with his head in his hands, wondering what the hell he's done. At this point, Star Wars basically becomes a space opera version of Frankenstein. Obi-Wan is the Doctor and Anakin the monster. Obi-Wan realizes this has gone too far, that he needs to fix everything, starting with Palpatine. With the knowledge that Palpatine somehow knew where Darth Maul was, as well as an overwhelming desire to now see him behind bars, Obi-Wan quickly discovers evidence of Darth Sidious's life as this double agent and quickly assembles a Jedi team in order to make an arrest at his office. On arriving at Palpatine's office, they find that Anakin is also there. Anakin asks what is happening, why are all these Jedi's assembled, why is Mace Windu, Plo Koon, bunch of other guys there, like what the hell is going on? Obi-Wan tells him, look, Anakin, your friend isn't who you think he is. I'm going to need you to step aside. We're going to arrest him. Anakin's like, what? Palpatine, Master Manipulator, jumps straight in. Obi-Wan, tell me you and your council wouldn't resort to this to push me out of the picture. Or are you really so jealous of your apprentice's power that you would hurt him through me? Obi-Wan ignores him. Anakin, I need you to step aside. Anakin pauses and stands, and for the first time in his life, he turns to Obi-Wan and simply says, no. He stands in front of Palpatine, protecting him, who smirks with excitement. Obi-Wan tries to stand his ground. Anakin, I am your master. You are not my master. Mace Windu's had enough of this and goes straight for Palpatine, but he's force pushed back by Anakin and in a panic draws his lightsaber. Obi-Wan shouts, no, wait, there's no need for that. But despite his best efforts, things quickly escalate and go out of control. Now in this narrative, Anakin is really strong to the point he doesn't know his own power. He makes quick work of the council members and even goes too far and kills them. Obi-Wan watches on in horror, absolutely terrified of what's happening. Anakin, realizing he's committed murder at this point, looks up at Obi-Wan, eyes filled with regret, and just not being able to handle it, Obi-Wan gets right the fuck out of there. Anakin is immediately remorseful over his actions, planting the seeds of redemption that will eventually come to fruition in Return of the Jedi. But Palpatine is quick in there to manipulate him into thinking it was the right thing to do. He points out they'd have taken him to a kangaroo court just because he was a threat to their political power. He convinces Anakin to join him as his apprentice, and they execute Order 66. The universe is thrown into political violence as Jedi's die left, right and centre. Anakin sets up a base of operations in Mustafar at the command of his new master. Obi-Wan, stricken with guilt, decides to confront him to put an end to this once and for all, and a heavily pregnant Padme insists on going with him. They get to Mustafar where Obi-Wan tries to reason with Anakin, but it's too late. He's too far gone. He tries to attack Obi-Wan and Padme interferes, causing her to take a fall, very unpleasant, for a heavily pregnant woman and become injured. Anakin blames Obi-Wan for her fall, and this initiates their climactic duel on Mustafar. Only in this version, it isn't evenly matched. Anakin is winning, and it's obvious. Everything Obi-Wan does is a fight of absolute desperation, as he narrowly avoids strikes, narrowly avoids stabs, and spends most of the fight rolling out of the way on his back. There is some occasional back and forth, but always almost instantly Anakin gets a dramatic upper hand, and everything Obi-Wan is doing at this point is an act of pure desperation. He's falling over himself as he tries to back away, panicking as he dodges lightsaber swipes by the skin of his teeth. Now in our version of events, the problem we have here is that Anakin needs to get really injured in this fight to become Darth Vader. But in this story, Obi-Wan just simply can't beat him. He tries his best to fight fairly, but it's just not going to cut it. And as Anakin's about to land the killing blow, he knows his only shot at survival is to do something against his own principles, against every matter of his being. He has to break the Jedi Code. On his back and looking up at his would-be killer, Obi-Wan does the unthinkable and reaches out his arm to commit the very first Force choke. Anakin drops his lightsaber. He's struggling to breathe and losing consciousness. Obi-Wan fights back tears as he forces himself to grip harder, crushing Anakin's windpipe and dropping him to the floor. It is in reflection of this moment later that Obi-Wan knows he has to die. He has become the villain, and Ben Kenobi will be his redemption. The name change is not an attempt to hide himself in exile, but rather because he no longer wants to be associated with the Obi-Wan name. It's a facet of his past that he wants to distance himself from, that he's ashamed of, and that he wants to forget. Ben Kenobi is wise only because he has learned so much from the past regrets of his former self. Obi-Wan delivers a tearful apology to a flawed Anakin, but can't bring himself to kill him, so he leaves the planet as Mustafar burns Anakin's body before Palpatine rescues him and turns him into the iconic Lord Vader we know and love. The heavy breathing now a result of the crushed windpipe and an apparatus that exists to support that within the new suit. Padme has the kids and dies in childbirth all the same. Obi-Wan delivers them to their respective homes ready for the original trilogy, and before he ends the film, he does one final thing in an act of attempting redemption and travels to a small little exiled swamp known as Dagobah to see the former leader of the Jedi Council, who was pushed out of the system for his peaceful ways that the rest of the Council believed to be representative of passivity and blissful ignorance. He sees a little green fella called Yoda. Obi-Wan says to Yoda, "Look, Yoda, Qui-Gon told us about you. I've messed up, man. I've gone to the dark side. I've done some terrible things." And Yoda says to him, "Mate, it happens to everyone. It happens to the best of us. It matters only that you seeked the light, that you came back." And Obi-Wan explains all the story of Anakin, what happened. Yoda listens and says, "Okay, what's going to happen is you're going to train his son. You're going to succeed in Luke where you failed in Anakin." And we leave it on a little hopeful note, ready for the original trilogy. I personally feel that this idea sort of lends itself nicely to the original trilogy. It gives a lot of context for characters' actions. Why is Ben Kenobi so wise? Because of all the mistakes he made as Obi-Wan. But why has he got that little mean streak in him? You know, he lies to Luke about his father, even though he deserves to know. And he cuts off that dude's arm in the bar. Well, that's because there's still a little bit of Obi-Wan in him. Why does Darth Vader force choke everyone who defies him? Well, because he learned it from his teacher. Why does Ben send Luke to Yoda? Well, because he knows firsthand of his teachings, and he understands that that's the guiding spiritual hand that Luke will need. Why does the Empire take over in the first place, other than, you know, to just be evil? Well, now there's shades of grey. Yeah, Palpatine seized power in unethical ways, but the Jedi Council were kinda dicks. Palpatine wasn't lying when he said they threw out Yoda. They did because they didn't deem him an aggressive enough leader. To them, his peaceful ways came across as incompetence and indifference. I mean, sure, they weren't Nazis, but they definitely had a questionable system in place. Why are they like top of the food chain, these ultimate overall controllers of everyday society? Mace Windu got angry when Qui-Gon defied him. Anger's not really something the Jedi should subscribe to, is it? I mean, if there's one thing we've learned from this story, seems like they lost their way a little. It's no wonder this political uprising came to a very violent end. All in all, I just feel that these few changes would make the films resonate a bit more with me personally. I realise the pitch isn't perfect, it kind of jumps over some points and it's not very well cleaned up, but if I addressed every issue I had with the prequels, I'd kind of be here all day. And this is already pretty long. I'm sure you'll have your own ideas, and yeah, like I say, I kind of glossed over some major things, but this is just a remix of the core idea and story. I'm by no means J.J. Abrams, and the new trilogy is probably going to wipe the floor with this idea. Please be good, please be good, please be good, please be good. But you know, we've all got our own thoughts about how we should change the prequels. That's just how I figure it.